Good morning, everybody. I haven't been on here in a couple of days, just for the weekend, though. But I'm going to get back to these early morning periscopes for the morning, live from the south side of Flint. My name is Quentin Barrett. I host a podcast along with my partner, Roderick Wallace, and it's called the Pick and Roll Podcast. You can find us on pickandrollpodcast.com or follow us at PAR Podcast on Twitter. I think my name on Twitter right now is Pico DeBarge. I like to change my Twitter handle all the time. But anyway, yesterday I attended the Flint City Council meetings for the month. And it was an important session because this was a session where they dealt with resolutions to the city charter that allowed for the release of funds to pay for the reconnection to the Detroit water system. So what's interesting about this is that they did get the $6 million from the state. They got another $4 million from the Mott Foundation, and then the city of Flint is on the hook for $2 million, which it has access to. There was a surplus in the sewer fund, the water and sewer fund. So I guess you could say the city has the money to be able to pay for this reconnection to the Detroit water. The interesting thing about this resolution, and what I want people to start asking questions about, and I credit my wife with this. She brought this up because I wasn't paying that much attention, apparently. In the resolution, it says that the $10 million or so is good for 9 months, and it is contingent upon basically waiting until the KWA pipeline, which is the Carolina Water Authority pipeline, to be complete June 30th of 2016. 2016 was a set date for the KWA pipeline to be finished. So here's my thing. After all of this back and forth, and now that we've got an undrinkable, unusable water supply as a result of going to the Flint River, all of the efforts that people in the city made in order to avoid going with the KWA, they're now going to go with the KWA anyway. And see, but that's how toxic the politics and the prices had gotten with Detroit. Flint and Detroit obviously never had any intentions on working together here to the benefit of the citizens. Detroit had found itself being accused of a lot of gouging over the last 5 to 10 years in terms of water rates, because they were controlling that water coming from Lake Huron. Just were pipelines built to service other municipalities, say that you have to go through Detroit. So these long-standing contracts were what Detroit held over the smaller municipalities' heads, both in Oakland County and north here in Genesee County. Well, here is the KWA pipeline, which was viewed as county business. See, the reason why Flint did not support the KWA in the first place is because there was a fight going on in Flint by different groups to keep the discussion about Flint business and not county business. See, there was a fear just a few short years ago that emergency managers and maybe even city leadership were going to begin to parcel off sections of the city, the corners of the city, northeast, southeast, southwest. They were going to slice off and give that over to the county in order to shrink the city so that it would have more of a manageable area in terms of public safety, in terms of public safety, in terms of tax base. And by itself, it's not necessarily a bad idea. Hey, you know what? I might have to do that one of these periscopes. Play some TDF. I'm feeling you. I'm playing this knowledge right now, though. Hold up. Yeah. Shout out to Knowledge out there, in the West Coast. It's kind of like a new day Jay Dilla. We love Dilla. Here in Flint, we still love a lot about Detroit. But anyway, back to what I was saying. There was a movement inside the city of Flint to be anti anything that sounded like county business. And this is actually a healthy lesson for a lot of people in small municipalities. Go back and learn the lesson of the city of Pontiac and Oakland County. Very, very dear friend of mine, TJ, schooled me to this years ago. And here in Genesee County, we kind of saw some of the same things happening where most of everything in terms of economic, political capital and economic capital was controlled by the city of Flint. And as the city of Flint began to erode, you saw some of that leverage erode, and you're still seeing some of that leverage erode, and it's going to the outskirts into those municipalities. And as a county authority, they're able to take control there. And the people of the city of Flint, many inside the city of Flint, do not like that. They're not happy about that. They have a pride that involves, being able to, have control and say what goes on inside the city. And there's also, and we can't run away from this. It's really dark today. This is me, y'all. We can't run away from this. I am driving, by the way. We can't run away from this. It is a racial thing. We cannot highlight that enough, and I'm going to tell you why. Mostly inside the city of Flint, Flint is not going to say predominantly, but it's a little over half. It's a black community. Well, most of the county business is run by white folks. It's just flat out what it is. We have some people that sit on a commissioner's board here or there, or they're Genesee County chairperson here or there. That may be people of color. But for the most part, it's white folks on the outside of the city. And so for people to see leverage and power, both political and economic power, go to the outskirts and basically go away from the people who actually live in the city, people are going to buck against that. It is what it is. And that's a result of toxic racial politics over decades. That is not necessarily the fault of the immediate actors in the situation here today. But that was the move. And that's actually what got us to the Flint River. Let's not lose sight of that. It was not necessarily just price gouging from Detroit. It was not necessarily because the KWA pipeline was not going to be ready yet. It was because people inside the city of Flint did not want to do business that sounded like county business. Well, I haven't tasted the water in quite some time. You might ask somebody else. I don't even remember, bro. Or ma'am, I don't know. I can't read the name. But people have not wanted to be part of county business in quite some time, and that's the reason for that. So that's the reason why at one point in time you had a lot of people inside the city of Flint supporting the switch to the Flint River, because it sounded and felt like Flint was doing it for ourselves. Forget what Detroit doing, forget what the county doing, forget what the governor say, forget what the rest of the state says. Flint is going to do its own thing. Well, due diligence. When you make a choice like that, due diligence must be executed, and due diligence was not executed in this situation, and to the detriment and probably some potentially very serious effects from the levels of lead that we're seeing in the water here. And we're talking about levels of lead that are not necessarily going to reside. They might reside as a result of the switch back to the Detroit water system, but they may not, because we have to realize it's not just a chemical reaction with the steel pipes, or not just an erosion of the protective coating and releasing the lead. We actually do have lead pipes in the city of Flint because it's very old infrastructure here, and people from other municipalities that have been around for a while understand that. I just hate the fact that there's very little serious discussion past 18 months of this, when it really goes back to 4 or 5, maybe even 10 years of this discussion. Because you got to remember, we were under that contract for Detroit, man. People were really upset, but we were seeing some super high water bills, and we're still seeing them now. Super high water bills. Exclusively at the hands of Detroit, just price gouging us. It's just what it was. And we weren't able to use anything for leverage because we had no other source available. Then here comes the KWA. But the people that were sitting on the board at the KWA didn't look like the people that were inside the city of Flint. So it felt like a takeover. It felt like doing business for us. And people were already ticked off and, and had the red ass because we were under an emergency manager. It's a very fearful, very awkward feeling that the people in the city of Flint have toward its city government and state government. It really is a feeling of fear, of insecurity and distrust. And when you have an environment like that, people are going to recoil, they're going to circle the wagons, and they're going to group think like a mother. Because one thing that does separate poor people or people of color is that when it is time to, when the time of crisis, we draw really, really, really tight. And we're not the only community that does that, but that is something that we do a lot of. Okay, and that's what the state and local officials are facing right now. You're facing a group of people that have dug their heels in, that believe the way they believe, and they're not going to budge. And it's going to be very difficult politically for anybody that is not a member of that community, or does not speak directly to that community, or does not appear to have that community's best interests at heart at all times. People are super suspicious. They are hurt. They're angry. They're scared. And they're going to behave like scared folk behave. But we have to create some perspective. So I ask everybody as we follow along with this, and I'm going to try to put together a piece for the Courier for Sunday regarding the proceedings at the city council meeting. But I encourage everybody, go back to about 2010, and it's not difficult to do. Go back to about 2010 and begin to look at discussions about water rates between Flint and Detroit and Pontiac, especially Pontiac, right around 2010, 2011. That'll give you some real clear perspective as to what the climate was like politically. Well, I hope some lessons are learned from this too. But you know, the only way you learn lessons as far as governing is fines and jail time. Apparently, people losing their seat or people losing their jobs sometimes is not enough. There's going to be a lot of political capital that's going to have to be paid for this mistake. But I fear that there may even be well down the line, there may even be people that have to do some jail time for this. And I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. I mean, we have elementary schools full of kids that have been drinking poisonous water for almost a year, a little over a year. I mean, that's a harsh reality. That's a very harsh reality that you have to think about. That children suck that water down off of the water fountain like it's nothing. That's one of their favorite things to do when they're in school. I don't know. Me and my wife and my child are going to go get tested because we are one of the zip codes that had levels were tested in our area that are relatively high. So we're going to go and get tested to see where our lead levels are. We haven't been drinking the water except for, we've been drinking bottled water mostly. I was hard-headed for probably the first few months when they had the scare about the TTHM. I wasn't necessarily sure how. I was being hard-headed, basically. I was like, they worried about nothing. No, it actually was a legit concern. So, anyway, y'all, I'm going to go ahead and sign off. I'm going to grab me a cup of coffee and go into work. Y'all be good.